You're very welcome back to the programme. Well, yesterday we heard about the massive rise in anxiety and depression that the organisation Aware is dealing with. Much of this rise is linked to the current economic difficulties in the country. And in response, Aware have launched courses around the country teaching people some basic coping skills. Well, last night our reporter Aisling Riordan went along to one of these courses and joins me now. Aisling, thanks very much for coming in this morning. Just remind us the thinking behind these courses.
Right, well, they're over 6 weeks. They're an hour and a half for one night each week, and the whole premise is to, stop the negative thoughts and change them to positive. And that's all well, great to say that, but how do you actually do it? So I went there last night for the first class, and it was great. The hour and a half flew by, so it was quite engaging and entertaining. And there were 35 of us in the room, so it was in the Stillorgan Park Hotel, so it was packed, full house. And there were 9 men and the rest of us were women. And I have to say, it was all over, it was over all age groups, but generally it was kind of people in their late 20s, 30s.
Really?
Yeah.
So quite a young group of people then?
Quite a young group of people.
And what did you learn, or what did you hear last night?
Well, we got these lovely books and a workbook, so it was a bit, like going back to college. But really, the focus for the first class was on the whole idea of a vicious circle. So basically, there's your head and what goes on in your head. And then outside is, life events. So maybe you lose your job. So it's the way you think. So the negative vicious circle is where you're saying to yourself, if you lose your job, oh, I'm worthless. You'll have all these negative thoughts.
It's over for me, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then that will lead. So that's called altered thinking, and then that links into altered feelings. So then you feel stressed, worried. You'll have anxiety, which then leads to altered physical feelings like anxiety, panic attacks. Feeling claustrophobic, and then that will lead to altered behaviour, where you're like, you know what, I'll stay in the bed. I don't even want to get out of bed. So this is the whole premise, and over the 6 weeks, or over the next 5 weeks, we learn how to stop that cycle and actually make it more positive. And the interesting thing is that you can change any one of these things. It doesn't have to go back in sequence. So let's say you've lost your job, which many people have in the current climate. So instead of you take your altered thinking and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm not useless, I'm actually quite good at different things, and I'll see this as an opportunity. I will, maybe I'll go back to college. And so that's the behaviour. Maybe you'll go back to college, and then that will lead to positive feelings if you make friends, instead of staying in the bed and saying, you know what, I'm not going to get up. So the more things you change, then the more positive feelings you can get.
Right, so you can't change what happens to you, but you can change how you deal with it. How did the people react yesterday? Were you talking to any of the participants after it?
I was chatting to a few, and they were quite positive about it.
Yeah.
I suppose the fact that it's the first class, people would be quite anxious, and Anna Marie,
having a television reporter turn up to the first class, I'd say added to that anxiety. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, no cameras were there, but
okay.
The trainer Anna Marie, she was saying that, after the circle, she was like, "Don't worry, don't freak out, because now you're understanding what's going on in your head."
Okay,
but that it will be positive over the next 5 weeks, because we'll learn how to do it.
Great. Well, listen, we'll be hearing more from you over the next 5 weeks. Thanks very much indeed, Aisling.